Hello again. So, guess what I've been doing for the last 10 days or so? No prizes for guessing. I've been listening to and comparing the classic vinyl reissue from Blue Note of Kenny Burrell's fantastic jazz album, Midnight Blue, from 1963. Probably my favourite jazz album. I love this album. So this was actually a pleasure to, not that they aren't always a pleasure, but this was a special pleasure for me. Just listening over and over to my favourite jazz album. And if my voice sounds a bit different, it's because I've got a cold. Not COVID, but just a proper normal cold. So I compared the classic vinyl series issue, which I got a couple of weeks back, with my Analogue Productions 45 RPM 2-disc version. And let's start at the beginning. So the covers. There's obviously a difference here. There is a difference between the two of them. And as usual, I use my reference. And this is my book, Uncompromising Expression. The Blue Note Story, fantastic book, highly recommended. That cover kind of mimics that one, I think. Yeah, it definitely does. The Midnight isn't quite as bright pink as that one. It's kind of more in keeping with that one. And the picture of Kenny Burrell is kind of the same colour as well. However, in contrast to that, my book, the cover art of Blue Note Records, they reproduce the cover pretty much the same as the classic reissue. So, yeah, bit bit difficult to tell which one is closer to the original. Take your pick. I mean, I actually don't know. I've not seen an original. Personally, I think I prefer the classic because just a bit more contrast between the pink and the blue. But then I do also like it's kind of a very cool, moody purple they've used there. But anyway, cover-wise, it's difficult to tell because even my references in my books are different. Now, I have to say, first things first, in terms of the listening, with the classic vinyl reissue, it is monumentally quiet vinyl, dead flat. They've done a great job at the pressing plant, and I believe it was pressed at Optimal. So Optimal have done a super job in terms of the quality control there. Very quiet. Now I listened, there's a couple of tracks on the album, Mule and Soul Lament, which really benefit from very quiet vinyl, and it certainly delivers basically. And the vinyl on my Analogue Productions version is also very quiet. So top marks for quality control there. So how did it sound in comparison? Well, it took a lot of listening. It took a lot of listening because there are differences, but very subtle differences. And I enjoyed listening to this one as much as I enjoyed listening to that one. They both have very slightly different qualities, but it's been actually very difficult to pin down what the differences are. But it basically boils down to this. I think that now there is a volume difference between the two, I think, and even that is very slight. Not as obvious as the last one I did for Dexter Gordon's Go, but the classic reissue is cut slightly louder, only very slightly louder, to my ears anyway, than the Analogue Productions 45 RPM 2-disc version. So volume matching was tricky, but I think I managed it. Now, I didn't use any particularly technical way of measuring that I was getting it right, but it didn't really matter because I think the qualities I was hearing with each version I was getting it no matter what the volume that I was playing them at. So But in short, I found that the classic vinyl reissue was very, very slightly brighter. This Analogue Productions one is very warm sounding. It's a very warm sounding version. And what that means to me is that the guitar sounds very slightly, there's kind of a low end bloom to the guitar, if you like. So it kind of accentuates the sound of the guitar that you get from the body. And the horn, Stanley Turrentine's saxophone, just seems to have that much little, it's a tiny, I mean the differences are so small, but they are there. Just that much more body to the saxophone. But this is at the expense of detail, because what I got from the classic vinyl reissue was you could hear every single minute tap of the cymbals from the drummer, whose name escapes me. Was it Ray Barretto? Might have been. Yeah, it was Bill English, I think. Ray Barretto was on congas, I think, and Major Holly was he was the bassist. So yeah, I think that's right. Yes, Bill English was the drummer. So every nuance of the drums is heard on this issue, whereas it's not so obvious on this one. So this perhaps accentuates the top end a little bit more than the Analogue Productions version. But I mean, we are splitting hairs. We really are splitting hairs, and I'm just highlighting the differences because you may prefer that. And actually, sometimes I did kind of prefer hearing, you know, just the tiny little taps of the cymbals and that kind of filigree detail. And then other times I preferred to hear Kenny Burrell's guitar perhaps a little bit more fulsome in its tone. Look, the differences are tiny, really. You could buy this one and be extremely satisfied. This one is going, I don't know how much this one goes for now on Discogs, but it's going to be more, you'll be paying more for the 45 than the classic. It's hard to make a case for buying the Analogue Productions one because this is just so darn good as well. But it's just interesting to do the comparison. The other thing I did notice actually was groove echo. You know, when you listen to a record and you can hear it in the background, the guitar solo coming before it actually comes. So that was slightly more apparent with the classic series issue than the 45. But then maybe that's because I think the grooves on a 45 would be spaced out a little bit more than they would on a 33. So maybe that's the reason why. But even then, I mean, again, the differences were very, very small. So yeah, fantastic. Again, reissue from Blue Note. They've knocked it out the park again. Really, really wonderful listen. And I would highly, highly recommend it. I mean, I could easily live with either of these. I mean, I'm lucky I have both, but if someone said, no, I have to take one of them away, it'd be hard for me to choose which one. I enjoy listening to both of them. So there you go. Yeah, I've also got some new records come in last week. Sonny Clark's My Conception. They're all kind of they're struggling for space on my shelving unit here. I've got all my yellows on the bottom shelf, which I've still got to get through a couple of those. But I'll just go through a couple of. So Afternoon in Paris by John Lewis and Sacha Distel. Even though this is mono, it is an absolutely gorgeous listen. That's from Sam Records. Highly, highly recommend that. This one I've not listened to yet. Herbie Hancock Taken Off. This is from the Blue Note 80 series, so I'm keen to hear this one. Idle Moments, Grant Green, which was released along with Midnight Blue. That is a fantastic, fantastic album. It's right up there with my favourite jazz albums. That is a wonderful listen. Like Midnight Blue, it's kind of a late night listen. You don't have to have it loud. You can have the volume low. It's still wonderful. The Bill Evans trio on a Friday evening, which was released by Kraft. I'm still getting through that one. That's a live recording. It's never been released. And Sonny Clark's My Conception, which I only listened to today. I really can't give you any opinion on that. I had it on very low. I was doing some work, so I didn't want it to infringe too much on my concentration. But yeah, I shall be listening to these once I get around to it. But for the last week, it's been or a week and a half, it's been these two. But lovely experience for me, because it is my favourite jazz album by my favourite jazz artist, Kenny Burrell. So that's it. Do give this video a like if you enjoyed the content, and if this is the sort of video you enjoy, then do please subscribe. Feel free to comment below. I always get back to comments, and comments are always welcome. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and keep spinning those records.